She stepped into the first-class cabin wearing a dark gray sweatshirt and sweatpants. But they humiliated her and forced her to leave. What they didn't know, her billionaire husband owned the entire airline. What happened next left the whole plane speechless. The morning sun poured through the massive windows of Denver International Airport as Olivia Bennet moved quietly through the crowded terminal. At 34, she carried herself with a composed grace, blonde hair tucked neatly beneath a black cap, her athletic frame clad in a simple dark gray sweatshirt and soft light gray sweatpants. The only hint of jewelry was a delicate silver bracelet circling her wrist. To the average onlooker, she appeared to be just another traveler opting for comfort over fashion on a long-haul flight. No one would guess she was the wife of Alexander Bennet, the billionaire tech mogul who'd recently added Summit Airlines to his expanding transportation empire. She checked her watch, a worn, vintage piece that had belonged to her grandmother. Still plenty of time before boarding Flight 782 to Boston, where her parents were celebrating 4 decades of marriage. Alexander had offered their private jet, of course, but Olivia had declined. She liked flying commercial now and then. It reminded her of who she used to be before wealth changed everything around her. "Just a black coffee, please," she told the barista at the airport cafe, pulling a few bills from her pocket instead of flashing the platinum card in her phone case. The barista smiled as he rang her up. "Going somewhere fun?" "Boston. Family thing," Olivia said, dropping her change into the tip jar. "Well, safe travels." Coffee in hand, she strolled to gate A22. Her gaze drifted across the rows of travelers, families with restless kids, elderly couples sitting hand in hand, lone professionals hunched over glowing screens. It was this everyday patchwork of people that fascinated her. Perhaps because she'd grown up in a modest home in rural Colorado before fate and a shared passion for environmental research introduced her to Alexander at a tech conference. "Now boarding our first-class passengers for Summit Airlines Flight 782 to Boston," the gate agent announced. Olivia slung her well-worn backpack over one shoulder and joined the short first-class line. A sharply dressed businessman gave her outfit a quick glance, followed by a slight double take. She was used to those looks by now. They no longer stung. "Boarding pass, please." The gate agent greeted her with a professional smile. Olivia handed over her phone. The agent scanned it, and her smile faltered, just a flicker, as she glanced between Olivia's boarding class and her attire. "Thank you, Miss Bennet. Enjoy your flight." With a nod, Olivia walked down the jet bridge, unaware that her choice of clothing was about to trigger an incident that would shake Summit Airlines to its core. The first-class cabin of Summit Airlines Flight 782 radiated understated luxury. Wide navy blue leather seats, elegant wood paneling, and uniformed attendants offering pre-flight champagne. As Olivia stepped aboard, flight attendant Diane Phillips looked up, and her polished smile stiffened slightly. "Good morning," Olivia said, holding up her boarding pass. "2A window." Diane's brows lifted. "First class is to your left," she said, her tone laced with polite skepticism. "Yes, I know. Thank you." Olivia walked down the aisle with quiet confidence, well aware of the eyes following her. The cabin was only half full. Businessmen in tailored suits, a woman in heels and silk, a celebrity chef Olivia vaguely recognized from TV. She tucked her backpack into the overhead bin and eased into her seat, pulling out a battered paperback instead of a tablet or laptop. Then came the tap on her arm. "Excuse me," said a male flight attendant, Richard, his voice low but firm. "Could I see your boarding pass?" Olivia looked up, calm. Of course. She brought up the digital pass again. He studied it for longer than necessary, then, with a stiff nod, turned and headed to the front of the cabin. She watched as he joined Diane, both glancing back at her and speaking in hushed tones. The businessman across the aisle was clearly listening, though he pretended not to. Diane returned, this time with the lead flight attendant, Caroline, in tow. Her polished badge and tightly clipped smile made it clear she was in charge. "Ma'am," Caroline began, coolly professional, There appears to be some confusion with your boarding pass. Olivia set her book down. There's no confusion. I'm in seat 2A, first class. Caroline's smile thinned. Occasionally the system glitches. This is a premium cabin, and you're assuming I don't belong here? Olivia said, calm but sharp. Is that what you're getting at? Caroline faltered just for a second. Not at all. We just need to reconfirm. You already checked it. Twice, Olivia said, holding up her phone. It says 2A. Doesn't it? By now, the rest of the cabin had tuned in. The man across the aisle paused mid-email. A woman near the window openly stared. Richard lingered nearby, arms crossed, his face unreadable but familiar with scenes like this. Perhaps you were upgraded accidentally, Diane offered, voice light but clearly dismissive. Or, Olivia replied smoothly, maybe I bought the ticket. Is there a dress code for first class I missed? Caroline's veneer cracked just slightly. There's no official dress code, but our premium passengers tend to dress in a way that reflects the level of service. So it's not about my ticket, it's about how I look. Across the aisle, an older gentleman cleared his throat. I've flown first class in sweatpants more times than I can count. No one ever said a word. This is between our staff and the passengers, sir, Caroline said tightly. It shouldn't be happening at all, he replied, and returned to his newspaper. Diane leaned in, whispering something to Caroline, who nodded, then turned back to Olivia. Ma'am, we're operating a full flight today, and we need to ensure all passengers are seated in their correct assignments. Our records show the seat is assigned to an O. Bennett. That's correct, Olivia said, her voice steady. Olivia Bennett. Do you have identification to confirm that? Richard asked, as though he'd just caught her trying to sneak into a luxury she didn't deserve. Olivia kept her calm, but her patience was rapidly thinning. You haven't asked a single other passenger for ID after boarding. The gate agent already verified my boarding pass. It's standard procedure when there are discrepancies, Caroline said smoothly. What discrepancies? Olivia asked, her tone now edged with restrained fire. Aside from the fact that I don't look like what you expect a first-class passenger to look like, the air in the cabin grew dense. Passengers shifted uneasily. A woman across the aisle leaned toward her seatmate and whispered, just loud enough, if she bought the ticket, what's the issue? Caroline's face turned to stone. Ma'am, if you're unable to verify your identity, we'll need to reassign you to economy. Olivia sat straighter. I can verify it, but I shouldn't have to. No one else here has been asked. Miss Bennett, if that is your name, Richard said, his smirk thinly veiled under forced politeness. We're simply following airline protocol. No, Olivia said, her voice now low and razor-sharp. You're following your assumptions. If I were wearing pearls and a designer coat, we wouldn't be standing here having this conversation. Caroline's corporate facade cracked. This is becoming disruptive. Show your ID, move to economy, or you'll need to deplane. Olivia could feel every gaze in the cabin. Some passengers looked away in discomfort. Others offered quiet solidarity. The entire spectacle unfolding like a cruel little drama. She could end this in seconds by revealing who she was married to. But that wasn't how she operated. Olivia never invoked Alexander's name for leverage. She had never needed to. This is discrimination, she said clearly. I bought my ticket just like everyone else. Ma'am, Caroline replied coldly. We need to complete boarding. Choose. Verify, move, or deplane. The injustice was suffocating, but Olivia saw the situation for what it was. A trap that would make her the problem if she pushed further. Fine, she said at last, standing tall. I'll move, but I want all three of your names and employee numbers. This isn't over. Richard offered a slight, smug smile. We'll find a seat in economy and compensate you for the fare difference. I don't want compensation, Olivia said, collecting her backpack. I want accountability. As she stood, The tension snapped like a cable under strain. Some passengers looked at her with empathy. Others stared at their screens. The older gentleman from earlier shook his head with visible disgust. Diane escorted Olivia out, though it felt more like an expulsion. Through the hushed business class cabin, through the curious stares and sideways glances, Olivia walked with her head high, but inside the humiliation burned. "Here you are," Diane said, motioning to a cramped middle seat in economy. "We apologize for any inconvenience." Olivia looked her square in the eyes. "No, you don't, but you might soon enough." If this story gripped you, don't forget to subscribe for more tales that uncover the hidden truths behind everyday moments. Now let's see what happened next for Olivia Bennett. The conference room froze. A wall of silence met Alexander Bennett's words. Caroline stood rigid at the podium, her face pale. Richard and Diane seemed to shrink into their chairs. Around the table, executives and board members looked from Olivia to the staff, piecing together the unfolding nightmare. "Your wife?" Patricia Winters finally asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes," Alexander confirmed coolly. "Olivia flew from Denver to Boston yesterday on our airline, in first class." Every word landed with the weight of a verdict. Olivia stepped forward, still in the same gray sweatshirt and sweatpants she'd worn during the flight, the outfit that had, apparently, rendered her invisible to Summit Airlines standards. Her silver bracelet glinted in the overhead lights, the only thing even remotely luxurious on her. "Caroline," Alexander said evenly, "you were in the middle of explaining our first-class experience standards. Please go on." Caroline opened her mouth, but no words came. Her slideshow on elevated service expectations now seemed like a cruel joke. Diane stared at the table. Richard had gone visibly pale. I believe there was a misunderstanding," Caroline finally stammered. "A misunderstanding?" Alexander echoed. "Is that how we're describing it?" He turned to Olivia. "Would you call what happened yesterday a misunderstanding?" Olivia stepped beside him, her voice calm but undeniable. "No, it wasn't a misunderstanding," she said clearly. "It was bias. I was judged, not based on my boarding pass, which was scanned multiple times, but on how I looked." She locked eyes with the flight attendants. "You assumed I didn't belong in first class. You questioned my identity. You threatened to remove me from the plane. And in the end, you humiliated me by marching me to economy while the entire flight watched." A board member shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Bennett, perhaps this discussion is better suited for a closed-door meeting." "No," Alexander said sharply. "This is exactly what this meeting is for. And I'm not here as Olivia's husband, though I am that." He paused, scanning the room. "I'm here as the owner of this airline, deeply concerned about a culture that devalues and mistreats paying customers based on appearances." Patricia looked devastated. "Mr. Bennett, I assure you, this doesn't reflect our company's values." "Doesn't it?" Olivia asked gently. "Because when I spoke to other Summit staff after my flight, I heard story after story. A teen in a hoodie pulled out of line. A disabled passenger questioned about their priority status. An older woman in casual wear denied access to the lounge, despite a valid pass." She placed a slim folder on the table. 27 documented complaints in 3 months, all with the same pattern. "This isn't 3 rogue employees, it's a broken culture." A heavy silence fell. Patricia opened the folder with shaking hands. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the contents. "I had no idea," she whispered. "And that," Alexander said quietly, "is the real problem. These weren't invisible. They were reported and buried, dismissed as customer misunderstandings." Caroline finally gathered herself enough to speak. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett," she said in a carefully measured tone, "on behalf of the team, I apologize for what happened. We do have protocols." "Stop," Olivia said gently but firmly. "This was never about protocol. When the businessman in 2C wore sweatpants last month, did you ask for his ID? When that actress in one aborted with sunglasses and a hoodie, did you question her? She looked straight at them. Protocol isn't the issue. Who you choose to apply it to is. Richard, sensing his future evaporating, tried a last-ditch defense. Mrs. Bennet, we had no way of knowing who you were. And that's the point, Olivia replied. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat me with dignity. My worth isn't tied to my husband's name, my bank balance, or my clothes. I paid for that seat. That should have been enough. The silence that followed was absolute. Alexander turned his attention to the flight attendants. Your conduct yesterday was biased, unprofessional, and deeply disappointing. In many companies, it would justify immediate termination. Caroline, Richard, and Diane sat motionless, waiting for the consequences to land. However, Alexander continued, terminating you today would fix nothing at a cultural level. It might feel satisfying, but it would only treat a symptom while ignoring the root cause. He turned to the entire room, his tone calm but resolute. Beginning next week, Summit Airlines will roll out mandatory anti-bias training for all frontline staff. We're also overhauling our customer feedback system to flag and investigate any reports of discriminatory treatment or prejudgment. Olivia stepped beside him, her voice steady and direct. And as for the three of you, she addressed the flight attendants, you'll be temporarily reassigned. 1 month with the customer advocacy team, listening to the people your decisions affect. 1 month serving in economy class where empathy often begins. After that, if your reviews reflect real growth, you can reapply for your first-class roles. Patricia Winters cleared her throat, her voice now full of resolve. I'll personally oversee the rollout of these reforms, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, and I believe the passengers documented in Olivia's report deserve restitution as well. Alexander nodded, agreed. Then he turned back to Caroline, Richard, and Diane. This isn't about retribution, it's about evolution. The true test of premium service isn't how well you cater to those who look important. It's how you serve everyone with equal respect. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, from the far end of the table, Board Chair Ella Simmons leaned forward. We owe Mrs. Bennet our thanks, she said firmly. She's exposed a blind spot that could have continued to damage our brand and drive away loyal customers. This is our moment to make it right. Not just in word, but in policy. Caroline, Richard, and Diane sat in stunned silence, not fired, but offered something far more demanding than punishment. The responsibility to grow. 3 months later, Olivia Bennet settled into Seat 2A aboard Summit Airlines Flight 923 from Denver to San Francisco. Same soft sweatshirt, same light gray sweatpants, same black cap. As she flipped open her weathered paperback, preparing for the flight to a climate research summit, a quiet voice greeted her. Good morning, Mrs. Bennet. May I offer you a drink before takeoff? She looked up. It was Richard. Gone was the dismissiveness. In its place was professionalism and something deeper, respect. Just water for now, thank you. He handed it to her gently, then paused. I'm not sure if you remember me. I remember you, Richard. He nodded, a quiet acknowledgement that no apology could erase that day, but something better might replace it. I wanted to say, thank you. These last 3 months have been eye-opening. Olivia regarded him carefully. How was your time in customer advocacy? Humbling, he admitted. I spoke with passengers who felt invisible, judged for how they dressed, how they spoke, who they sat beside. Things I never noticed before, but they did. They always do, Olivia replied. Down the aisle, she spotted Diane assisting an elderly man in worn jeans and a flannel shirt. She was kind, patient, helping him with the same care she might have once reserved for someone in a suit. The change wasn't dramatic, but it was real. The program you and Mr. Bennet created, it didn't just teach policy, Richard said. It changed how we think, how we see people. I'm glad, Olivia said softly. Richard straightened, professionalism returning. If there's anything you need today, Mrs. Bennet, I'm here. As he moved down the aisle, Olivia spotted Caroline in the galley, efficiently prepping for takeoff. Their eyes met. Caroline offered a small, sincere nod. Not deference, not fear, but understanding. The transformation at Summit Airlines had rippled far beyond these three faces. The anti-bias initiative had reached every terminal, every ticket counter, every gate. Customer satisfaction was climbing. Internal morale was rising. Employees felt empowered to treat each passenger with dignity, not because of who they were, but because of what they were, human. Other airlines had taken notice. Summit was quickly becoming an industry model, proving that premium service didn't need to look like exclusivity, could feel like inclusion. As the plane reached cruising altitude, Olivia looked out across the mosaic of farmland below, thinking about how a single moment of injustice had turned into something far greater. Not through outrage, but through awareness. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. "How's the flight?" She smiled and typed back, "Different, better." 2 rows ahead, a young woman in ripped jeans and a faded band tee shared a quiet laugh with her partner. Relaxed, unbothered, receiving the same attentive care as the suited professionals around them. No second glances.
No hashed commentary.
No invisible gates of judgment. This, Olivia knew, was the real victory. Not that she could fly first class without question, but that now anyone could. Stories like Olivia's remind us, meaningful change doesn't come from punishment. It comes from perspective. Has someone ever judged you based on how you looked? Or have you caught yourself doing the same? Share your story in the comments. If you found this narrative powerful, subscribe to our channel for more stories that challenge assumptions and illuminate the quiet courage behind real change. And hit that bell so you never miss a story that might just shift how you see the world.